Hey guys, welcome back to another weekly trucking roundup. Today is Sunday, March 9th, and we're going to be breaking down the top trending trucking stories that came out this week. From the BOI filing, which is now dead again, to the highway ELD drama, to the trucker overtime pay, and more. So let's get into it, break it all down, and see how it will affect the trucking industry. Ready? Let's go! So first up, of course, the BOI filing is dead again. The beneficial ownership information regulatory roller coaster, my goodness, that is a tongue twister, has been on and off again for a year now. Basically, it was there to force small businesses to have to report things like names, addresses, IDs of owners who had a 25% or more stake within the company. Now, truckers and small fleets have been staring down at this March 21st deadline, which is when they were supposed to file this BOI. But on March 2nd, the Treasury Department decided to put an end to BOI filing once and for all. They basically said they will not be enforcing it. There are not going to be any penalties or fines if you do not file your BOI, as long as you are a US citizen or you are part of a domestic reporting company. The department is looking to still require foreign companies to file their BOI. Next, we have the highway ELD drama. You guys know highway probably because this is the system a lot of brokers use in order to get set up with carriers, and a lot of truckers have a problem with that system. On March 6th, Overdrive ran a piece titled Highway Denies Selling, Storing, or Otherwise Snooping on ELD Data. So what was this article about? Well, basically Overdrive went to Highway with a list of questions that came from truckers, such as, are you the one pushing this ELD integration? And are you then storing and selling the data you obtain from that ELD integration? So what did Highway have to say? Well, they said, our hands are clean. We are not the ones who are denying freight. We don't ask for a login credential unless the ELD's API key requires it or forces it. And as far as tracking, we do not track outside of the specific loads. So basically no selling and no storing beyond what's needed. Now, here's where it gets messy. ELDs have been a sore spot in this industry since their mandate in 2017. They were supposed to be there to track hours and prevent driver fatigue and therefore create safer roads. But of course, there's always a dark side. Actually, in 2020, the FBI warned that ELDs can be hacked with engines derated, trucks stopped remotely, and that just doesn't make anyone feel safe. Now add Highway's integration and it's a privacy nightmare. The question remains, who has your data? Is it the freight broker? Is it Highway itself? Or is it a hacker who hacks into the system? All right, now let's shift gears to something a lot of truckers have been talking about. So this is going to be somewhat good news for you. And we are talking about trucker overtime pay. Just recently, Congress decided to dust off the Guaranteeing Overtime for Truckers Act, aka the GOT Truckers Act. So what does it do? Well, it's going to kill a rule from 1938 that kept truckers exempt from overtime pay under the Fair Labor Standards Act. So what do we have right now? Right now, truckers are working 60, 70 hours per week, so very, very long weeks, but they do not get overtime pay for those extra hours. If this act passes, then employee truck drivers, not independent contractors, are going to end up seeing a bigger paycheck on those long hauls. Imagine 50 hours on and 10 of those hours are at overtime rates. We're talking about totally different money here. But sadly, it is not a done deal quite yet because Congress has stalled on this before, and considering the situation with the tariffs as well as the freight slump, some are saying maybe this is not the best time for this. Others, of course, are saying pay us what we're worth right now. So the question is, will it stick this time? Well, unfortunately, it's too early to call. Another piece of news that will have any truckers or carriers' attention is this, the tort reform. This week, Landline reported that states like Arkansas, Nebraska, and South Carolina are tackling the tort reform, which would basically change the civil civil lawsuit rules and could save truckers from legal headaches. The big idea is very simple. Stop the lawsuit abuse that has been hammering both truckers and carriers with those huge and unfair payouts. Now, unfortunately, again, these reforms are not locked in everywhere yet. This is a developing thing. Nebraska's bills are still in the committee. South Carolina's still needs Senate approval, and Arkansas's bill is just in the beginning stages. Now, what does it mean for the trucking industry as a whole? Well, number one, it could mean lower premiums in the long run. And of course, less legal stress and a shot at actually defending yourself in court. So keep an eye on your state house because this could definitely change how you roll. Next, we have some leadership news from the FMCSA. The FMCSA has a new acting administrator, Adrienne Kammer. So she's stepping in to oversee the agency that calls the shots on trucking regulations, safety, and keeping freight moving. So what does this change mean for you? Well, number one, she is not a trucker. She's a suit with a safety mission. Posts online are mixed from truckers. Some are saying that this is great, it's a shakeup, but others are saying that she has no business being there because she has never been in a rig, and how could she possibly know what this industry needs? Now, what is her focus? Well, safety is the buzzword. Think crash prevention, tighter enforcement, and maybe more scrutiny on those hours of service and ELDs. Now, this isn't permanent. Acting administrator means that she's just there to keep the seat warm until a full-time pick is confirmed. That full-time pick could be her or could be someone else. So I guess on this one, we're going to wait and see which way the wind blows. Finally, we have to talk about the tariff effect. This week, the White House delayed most of the 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico to April 2nd. But the American trucking associations are sounding an alarm. They say that 85% of the Mexico-US trade and 67% of the Canada-US trade moves by truck. That's 100,000 drivers hauling cross-border freight daily, and these tariffs could definitely choke up those lanes. To top it off, FreightWaves definitely dropped some big news on March 6th. Over 14,300 workers tied to freight sectors in the US, Canada, and Mexico have lost their jobs since January 20th of 2025. Now here we're talking about drivers, warehouse workers, and manufacturing hands. So what do you think about this? Are tariffs a win or a bust? And how do you think tariffs are affecting your operations right now? So that's a wrap for this week's trucking news. Which story are you following closely? Is it the truckers' overtime pay? Is it the tariffs? Is it the tort reform? Personally, I am really curious about this tort reform because these nuclear verdicts that are hitting trucking, they are not only hitting those companies that are involved in the lawsuit, they are affecting everyone else around with higher insurance premiums. And of course, if there is a reform in the way lawsuits are filed against truckers, this could have a big effect on most people who are in the trucking industry. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for joining and watching today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep learning. See you in the next video.